Welcome to another episode of season 2 of Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare. I am excited about this show. Jessica Guthrie and I have been planning this for some time, but we're going to talk about the joys of caregiving. She is a leader in the space, in the community on Instagram, and she shares a journey of taking care of her mother under the handle of Career Caregiving Collide. And so I'm so happy for you to be here, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Let's just start with your quick bio. You're in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Did you grow up there, or what's up?
Yes. Okay. So I am the daughter of Constance Guthrie. I am an only child. She's a single mother. I was born actually in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of DC. My mother was a hairdresser, business owner. And then when it was time for me to go to school and to grow up, my mom wanted me to have a house to live in and good schools to go to. So she sold her business, gave everything up, and we moved down to Fredericksburg. So I grew up in suburbia of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I was here all my life until I left for undergrad. I went to undergrad in New Hampshire. And then I started my life for my professional life in Dallas, Texas with Teach for America. And so
Wow.
I've always been someone who's been like, I want to go, let me go be independent. And it's kind of ironic that I'm now back home in 2024 caring for my mother as she is living with late stage Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, and you do it so well. You know, you mentioning her being a hairdresser, it reminds me of my godmother. Again, her picture is staring at me from her obituary. She was the premier hairdresser in Los Angeles. She
Okay.
moved from Houston, Texas, in the 60s, I believe, and had this beauty shop, like big beauty shop, and it was amazing. So did you spend a lot of time in the shop too?
Oh, I was the queen of the shop. I was the hostess with the mostest. Okay.
You,
Birthday
me, and
party.
Beyonce. You, me,
Yeah.
and Beyonce in the shop, huh?
Yes. Yes. I would say like I grew up really fast because I was around so many like adults, I listening to conversations, and so I feel like and you said this earlier, like you're an old soul. It's because I
Yes,
was around adults for so long at such a young age,
yes.
just learning how to engage in conversation and keep people entertained. Like that's very much how I grew up. Mhm.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what Old Soul means, besides it being my favorite wine, um, it's actually a term of endearment. Like I feel the sense of warmth from Jessica, the way that she engages when she speaks to us, when she's talking to her mother, when she sings, the way that she laughs. It's just that's all I can say. So anyway, thank you for being here. So let's talk like the title career caregiving collide. I know you have an amazing career. I see your credentials, masters in education. And I know in my own life, some caregivers don't even identify as a caregiver because they're working and they may be monitoring remotely like you were, or they moved in like you. So how did this thing collide? Just briefly tell us, that story, and then we'll talk about the joys that you share.
Mhm. So, my mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease at the age of 66. I was her 39-year-old surprise. Therefore, I was 26 when this happened. And at the beginning of this journey, I was living in Dallas, Texas. She was in Virginia as an educator. And I was starting my career. I had just finished, a couple years teaching in the classroom. I was stepping into this new role. I had said that I wanted to be an executive director by a certain age. Like I had all these aspirations of who I wanted to be, how I wanted to live my life, where I wanted to go. And then, in 2014, life changed for me. And it very much felt like a collision, right? Like now, what do I choose? I am an only child. There was no one else. So I had no choice but to keep working, and also had no choice but to care for my mom. And so it's like, now, how do I still grow and develop in my career all the while being an excellent caregiver? And so I created this community of when career and caregiving collide to uplift the stories of young Black working caregivers, me, right? So that other people could see themselves and feel validated and affirmed in the realities of their experiences.
That's fantastic because I remember when I first followed you, I didn't realize there was such a big community. I was confusing. I just saw the page. I saw a Black woman and caregiving, and I was like, "Are you the millennial caregiver on Twitter?" Like, you're like, "No, there
Oh,
are lots." You said there's lots of Black women on here sharing their journey of taking care of their mother. I said, "Okay," but no, you all have a different personality and different perspective that you bring to the community. That's what I want to highlight. And for you, again, you share the ups and downs, the challenges, and all those things so that folks can navigate. And you do it with a sense of joy. Like, how do you do that?
yeah. So we've been on this journey for now 10 years. It's 10 years and counting. And I don't want to overlook the fact that being a caregiver of someone living with Alzheimer's disease is very difficult. And so, and it's difficult in the sense that like you literally witness someone changing and evolving with every stage of this disease, right? To go from my mom, who was so vibrant and bold and, unapologetic about who she was, to now 10 years later being fully bedbound, fully incontinent, fully dependent on me, a 7D on the fast scale, right? Like everything now flows through me. And it's been a journey that's truly been a roller coaster. However, I have so much joy, especially now, because I know what it's like to almost lose her. I put my
Hmm.
mom on hospice the first time in 2022. She had declined, had infections, falls, all the things. And so in my mind, I was preparing to let her go, right? I had visited the funeral home. I had taken, family medical leave from work. Like Jessica, was slowing down. And there's something about when you get really present and proximate, you start to just see the power of who an individual is, right? Like, and get really close to that relationship. And that was probably like the best time for me and for her and for us. And I say this that I have joy now is because she's still here 2 years later, right? And so every day for me feels like magic time. It's time I didn't think that I would have. So now I recognize the gift it is for her to be here, right? The gift for her to speak back to me, to, smile when I wake her up in the morning, for her to, respond yes or no, or whatever it is she decides to say. Like it's just, it's truly a representation of the power of life and connection, and I don't take that for granted. So I commit to finding joy in all the little things, because in such a hard disease, you have to connect to joy to get through the challenging moments.
Hmm. Wow. Breathe that in, whoever is listening. So the reason that's so amazing and powerful is because, and I'm just sharing, thank you for bringing up hospice. We'll get into, how you have to have variations in the care model that you're using. But sometimes I see caregivers, again, all well meaning, they love their person, but sometimes they can just be lost in the routine that they're not seeing the person. And again, I picked this profession for the person, and not that I wouldn't say I have, it's no competition, but I'm just saying they may be caught up in the stress of things, the routine of things. And my heart just longs for them to want to grab that and see their person, because I see the time ticking. I see, you drop in the fast scale. I see the decline. I see all this stuff, and I know the body is, declining, and they may not be with us present in body. And so that's why I want to talk to you. I don't even know how it's going to come out, but I just hope that people can see their person, even though they have a devastating disease, and they're leaving us. I want them to embrace the legacy in some kind of way, integrate life.
Yes.
Every day. Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it absolutely does. And, I think I often witness this, is that because caregivers are so exhausted, because it's either been not even just a long journey, it's a really intense journey. And you sometimes lose sight of the human that's sitting there. But the thing that I'll tell you is that even though my mother is with late stage Alzheimer's disease, my mother still hears everything. She can still feel people's energy. She knows when you're truly present versus when you're trying to like rush. And so I say this because even though they might not be able to communicate to you or like say what they used to say, or even if they've like maybe gotten a little bit more mean or angry, right? Like just know that the energy that you bring around your person, the things you say to them, right? They feel it. And I think that's also what shifted my perspective of operating from a place of joy, because she feels that joy. She feels the excitement and energy, and that helps to keep her going, and that matters too. And so my encouragement is that, one, all the feels, take the time away, go yell, go cry, go sit in your car, go to the gym, right? Like let it out. But don't, your person's still living, and they deserve to feel loved and valued and seen for as long as they're still living.
Well said. Well said. Well, I know there was another interaction we had on Instagram where some of my colleagues were not maybe on their best behavior, or as sensitive as they should be, or have the amount of insight they should have to what you're dealing with. And I know, I tried to comment. I'm like, I don't want them to think I'm going to do that. I just want to know what you mean by that. So could you share, for the sake of the caregivers navigating the healthcare system, hospitals and things of that nature, and also for the specialists and PCPs who are in the, when we're in the late stages of a disease, because things change. Like our patients may have a doctor for 40 years, but when it changes, it's just a whole different world. Sometimes you got to just interface with the home health, because you can't get them to the doctor anymore. So anyway, I want to address navigating the healthcare system and those challenges that you know so well, and help us be better.
Ooh, okay. Ooh, okay.
That's a lot.
Okay, so headline. I think one of the biggest headlines I would love to get across to folks is that the family caregiver, I consider the family caregiver the linchpin in a person's care. Like they are the one that is holding all the information. They know all the ins and outs about the loved one's disease. They are the ones that have navigated insurance, navigated hospitals and doctors, navigated all the changes that have happened in that person. They are the ones that have created every single system strategy, right? They're the ones who are taking off of work to be there, right? And so the family caregiver is truly the most critical component in just this relationship. And I think that sometimes what I have experienced is, even though I am the expert in my mother, I often get treated as if I don't know anything, or as if I don't know the ins and outs of my mother's disease. When in reality, I feel like, especially when it comes to dementia, I know a lot more than some of the practitioners, because I'm in it every day. And so the first lesson, or first thing I would just share in navigating and giving insight to our experience is like, please center the caregiver, right? Because when the caregiver feels seen and valued, the patient is seen and valued, and everyone thrives. I think the second thing that I would say is, whether you are a hospice practitioner, or a primary care, or home health, or palliative, um, you cannot underestimate the power of slowing down and being curious, and like asking questions to understand, versus just assuming you have a breadth of knowledge. I think one of the hardest things is when people just assume they understand what the current state that we're in. And you're like, wait, but you didn't approach this from curiosity. And you made a lot of assumptions about who we are and how my mom's care has been. And if you had just taken 30 extra seconds
Mm-hmm.
to say, I would love to hear from you. why did you make that choice? Or like, could you give me insight into the last 2 years of this journey? Or, tell me more about this wound your loved one has so that I don't make assumptions about the ways in which you've been caring about her. It's all the same stuff. You're just taking a few extra seconds to slow down. So slow down and be curious. And then I think the last thing I would just say is that recognizing that whether you're coming into the home or whether a patient and caregiver is coming to you, they are entering with a story. They are entering with baggage. They are entering with mistrust. And no matter how great you think you are and how amazing you are, you have to take the time to build the trust with this family. Because frankly, for me anyway, I've had a number of traumatic experiences where we weren't listened to, we weren't, heard, dismissed, and that clouds how I see other medical professionals. And so I think it's like when you understand that, you enter with greater empathy, you enter with greater just like patience and grace so that you can then do your job really well. Those are the top 3 things I would say.
I got it. And they will be bulleted in the show notes as the education. Yeah. Our healthcare system fails, and people hear me say this, for folks during the late stages of life. I like to call it that because we'll have an episode on that. But the late stages of life is when adult children need to become involved. So your mom may have been doing her own thing, maybe a little bit shorter since you were a surprise, right before she turned 40. But for most people, their parents are living their own life, doing their own thing. And then, they have to start getting engaged and going, maybe let's go to the appointment with you and see what's going on. That's when the late stages of life starts. And it goes from there to palliative care, which everyone should get engaged in, hospice, home health might be in there before, and then until they leave this earth and they die. So I like to help people during that stage, but the healthcare system is failing people during that stage. It's, where a caregiver may have a question and they call the PCP, and what's the response they get? Go to the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I was working in urgent care, and someone's relying on urgent care. And, I was wearing my urgent care hat, but my hospice heart was there. And I'm like, oh no, he's falling. He keeps falling. What are we doing at home? We need to get some other care going. It's time to make decisions. So I facilitated a little family meeting there because maybe the people are not talking to them. I don't know, but I know we can't keep falling.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
And so anyway, what do you have to say about that? Like again, I think everyone who is working still, who has not retired to become an online coach, but everyone who still stayed in healthcare, we want to do the right thing, but the system fails folks during the late stages of life.
Yeah.
What can we do to make it better?
I think you touched on it briefly, but knowledge, just having the knowledge allows people to show up better for their family members and or just like make better decisions. And to be honest, I didn't know anything about home health. So asking about, occupational therapy or physical therapy when my mom was struggling walking, I didn't realize that was like her disease progressing, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't know that was something I could ask for. I didn't understand or know about asking about palliative care until I met people to, pour into me and tell me that. Even hospice care, I had mixed understanding and misinterpretations of what hospice really meant and didn't realize the power and the benefit for someone living with dementia of hospice, right? And so I share this because I think that people genuinely just don't know. And so you shy away from what you don't know. And so if medical professionals could just do a better job at being proactive in communication, you might not need this now, but I'm putting it on your radar, especially in the land of dementia, right? So much happens in the later stages that you just don't know about because you don't know about it. But it's like, be on the lookout for walking gait changes. Be on the lookout for changes in appetite and eating and swallowing. Be on the lookout for falling. And you're like, okay, cool. We might not be there yet, but I now know what questions to ask or what to look for, or, who to leverage. Would be absolutely game changing and help families, especially, not feel like they're drowning when the crisis comes.
Woo, that's so awesome. What you just said, I have chills. So that is it. Because I see, again, I created Mourning Dove because I saw so many stories. I have to write the CTI for hospice. I have to describe the trajectory of decline. But I'm like, oh, what happened? Uphill.
Mm-hmm.
This is to help uphill. And so what you describe, being proactive in communication, is it. Be on the lookout. That's the phrase. So that would be us as clinicians describing the trajectory of disease. That is what I've said. It's like, if you start dialysis, you should know that at some point it's not going to be effective and you and your family have to decide. The hospice doctor shouldn't have to have a family meeting to talk about it. Like, you should have talked about that with your nephrologist 5 years ago. Cardiology stuff, pulmonology stuff, you have COPD. Eventually, you're going to be on all the inhalers, you're going to be on oxygen, and you're going to have 5 exacerbations, and we should consider hospice and manage you at home. Those are the simple conversations. Heart failure, I have to say that. Cardiovascular disease is the number 1 cause of death. So at some point, you're going to be back and forth in the hospital, and you should focus on hospice care. It doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow. It just means we're managing the care at home. And you said it there. And thank you for bringing up occupational therapy. I actually am planning to do an episode on that with an occupational therapist because, again, people don't know what they don't know. And so I want to challenge the caregivers, because you guys are smart. How many millions of caregivers are out there, Jessica?
53 million.
Okay, so I'm not underestimating your intelligence. Dr. G knows you're smart, and everyone has one of these smartphones. So what I always encourage folks to do is organize, like, when they have the med list, organize it by disease. And then know or ask your doctor or Google what's going to happen at the end stage of this chronic disease. If you know your mom has, we're talking about Alzheimer's, again, that person, your mother, your dad may have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment years ago, and you never knew.
Yep.
And so, again, I'm going to be talking about that soon. It's like, if you have that label on your chart, you should be planning ahead. Am I going to age in place? Am I going to move to a memory care? Am I going to sell the house? Again, those are the advanced care planning things that are important that we can do in a crisis, but we want to prevent the crisis, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you for saying that, Jessica. Wow. You hit on everything. I didn't even have to ask you.
Very good.
Yeah. So you are the valuable resource today, and your website is going to be posted here. I'll leave you with the final words. We talked about your mom's legacy, whatever you want to share there, and what final words you want to leave with our listeners here.
Yeah. Well, I think a few thoughts come to mind. One is that to the caregivers, no matter what disease you're caring for, who you're caring for, I think the thing that I'll say is you're doing the very best you can, right? And I there is no best caregiver award. There is no, a winner of this journey of being a caregiver. All that your loved one needs and desires of you is to keep showing up, to wake up every day, to do your best, and, take the lessons and learn from them. By no means have I been a perfect caregiver the last 10 years, but I have committed to treating my mom with dignity and respect, to preserving who she was and who she still is, right? And to bringing joy and laughter and love and the things that she truly was always connected to her every day. And I think if you live and operate in that space, you can say, well done at the end of this journey. I can tell you that. I think the second thing that I'll say for those of you who are medical professionals or people connected to hospice, home health, palliative, right? Like, I just think, especially as a young person navigating this with my mom, the more that we can just build relationship and connection and understanding of people's stories and operate from a place of like empathy and curiosity, just the more people will be connected and excited to leverage said services, so that everyone thrives, no matter how long the person has. And then, my website, but also my work, I spend a lot of time helping people think about, how do I balance my career? How do I balance caregiving? How do I still show up? And I think there are a number of things that I could tell you. But the thing that I'll say is that there's no perfect balance. The thing that I'll say and leave you with is that it's all about, are you clear about your priorities and what matters most to you? And when you understand your priorities for yourself is number one, what you need, what your person needs, and then what is it that your job is requiring of you, you can then make choices around your energy, right? What you let go, what you delegate, what you say no to, right? All of that is within your control as you're thinking about holding and balancing career and caregiving. So I would love for you all to be a part of our community, either on Instagram or follow me on my website, jessicacguthrie.com. But I deeply believe that we have the power to shift how people are treated and cared for in this country. And it starts with us.
Amen. Thank you for being here, Jessica. I will stay engaged with you on Instagram, and we're going to sign out. The joys of caregiving. Thrive was a key word. You're thriving. Yes. And so thank you for sharing your journey, and we're happy to be here. So take care. Peace.
Yeah.